Okay, great. As you can see, we have still some slight technical difficulties. I hope the staff of the BCC will resolve them shortly. But anyway, let's start with the talk. Bernd Fix, our speaker, was born in 1962 in northern Germany. And actually, it's a bit odd we met here again for the first time in, I don't know, 20 years almost. So he has been an active member of Heidelberg CCC for a while. Now he's, after running quite a few various software companies in different businesses, different fields, he's now working in Switzerland. His company tries to leverage the advantages of aspect-oriented programming. So if you always wanted to know what that is about, you could ask him after the talk. His talk now has the title, A Not So Smart Card. It's about a Swiss debit card and features a demonstration of the lame attempts at security the guys who wrote this thing made. So the people who had already visited the lightning talks with StudiVZ and stuff like that probably will enjoy that again. Now, as you can see, slight technical difficulties. I hope the guy from Ambien is about. Well, so maybe you can kind of try to fix this online if you have a remote control for the beamer. And in the meanwhile, Bernd.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm quite overwhelmed by such a large audience. I didn't expect so many people that are interested in a very special card. Probably most of you have never seen it. So may I ask a first question to the audience: who's from Switzerland in this talk? Oh, quite a few. Who owns the postcard? It's looking like this. So nearly everyone who's from Switzerland is owning a postcard, which is, of course, not a good statistic. We have a too small sample, but that's interesting. Quite a few people have it, so maybe we can see what we can do with your cards afterwards. So. Okay, so we are talking about a debit card, which is unique to Switzerland. It's issued by the Postfinanz, which is the Swiss counterpart of Postbank here in Germany. And it's a debit card. It's like the EC or MasterCard. It's not a credit card, but a debit card. So you can only have, you can use it, you have to use it different. But as you see, quite a few people are using it. And actually, not too sure if that's showing up, yes? So we have about 2.5 million users of this special debit card, which makes about half of the population. So the rule is every second person in Switzerland, living in Switzerland, has one of these postcards. And the number of young people using these cards is quite high because you can get them before you are 18. You can get credit cards only if you're over 18, but you can have this debit card if you're younger than that. So it's quite, it's used a lot, and you can see it from the yearly figures as well. So these 2.5 million users generate about 700 million transactions yearly, and the total transaction volume is about 8 billion Swiss francs. That's quite a number, to be honest. And if we do some statistic on these numbers, you see you have about 23 transactions a second, every day, every week in a year. And the general transaction volume is about 10 Swiss francs. That's the mean value. So you can count that for micropayment. Of course, you can withdraw money from an ATM, of course, but you can pay small amounts with this card. So you can use it in the so-called Posttomaten, which is a very special ATM designed for the postcard, for the Postfinanz. You can use it with Bankomaten, which is the normal EC card ATMs, which are generally owned by another bank. And you can pay on ticket machines, in discounters, in shops. You can use it really nearly everywhere. So the acceptance of this card is quite high. And if you get one of these cards, it's valid for a 4-year period. So you get it, and it's valid for 4 years. You can use it over the internet as well, and this is something you might not be used to in Germany or in other countries, because paying over the internet with a debit card is quite unusual. And interestingly enough, they call it a secure online transaction, for example. Yes, it's SSL based, so it's secure. It must be secure. And all you have to enter is the card number, which is printed here, and the account number, which is printed here, and press a button. But that fact is well known, and that's not very interesting. So I'm not going to talk about this secure online transaction. I'm going to talk about something else. And every good hack needs a kickoff event, and that kickoff event happened about 4 years ago, when a student who lived in Zurich, out of nothing, received a letter from the Postfinanz with a new card, stating he has to use this new card because his old card is full. And this may happen quite often in Switzerland, I don't know. But he was simply bright enough to ask one simple question: full of what? And this guy was not only bright, he was only a civil rights movement guy, and he works for the Big Brother Awards in Switzerland. So it actually hit the wrong person, I guess. So he wrote to the Postfinanz asking them, well, full of what? What are you doing with my postcard? So what do you store on it? And they wrote back a letter explaining quite in detail that every transaction done with this card is locked on the card itself. So if you use it too much, if you use it over the normal use, well, it runs out of space. Sure, it's full then. And then it's rendered unusable. Well, he said, should I believe them? Who can I trust? So he said, well, maybe that's true, maybe it's not true. So I need some independent research on it. And he sent this card, or his old card, to a chaos-related smart card expert in Germany. And he said, well, maybe you can have a look at it, if it's true what's going on there. And if you receive such a card, the very first thing, of course, you do is put it into a smart card reader. This is, of course, something you do the very first thing. And then you get something which is called, you can't see all of it, sorry. Something that is called ATR, answer to reset. The card identifies itself if it's put into a reader, which is necessary for the applications to recognize a card before doing any other stuff with it. So you get this ATR, which is don't say very much, but you can, of course, look it up or try to look it up in a list of ATRs, of well-known ATRs. So this is one of the cards. You can do it, and you see it looks like the French banking card, which is interesting, isn't it? Oh, you can't see it. I'm so sorry that it's cut off. Okay, you just have to believe that the front of it, it's the same with it's the same ATR stuff. You see a lot of French cards with the same ATR, and of course a banking card is always interesting. But there's a France Telecom card, And interesting enough, a D-Trust card. Maybe one day we should have a look at that. And you find the postcard. So these cards have very, very similar ATRs. That doesn't mean anything from the beginning, but of course you wonder why. And you will look deeper into it. Well, you find out that this postcard is a standard ISO 7816 card, so it responds to the normal smart card commands. It has something like a file system on it, probably. And then you can run some checks which class codes on these cards are supported. And you find out very easily that, for example, the class code BC is supported, which is not unusual for memory cards. So maybe this isn't a smart card at all. Maybe it's just a memory card. And they said it's full of transaction logs. So it's not too far-fetched to think it's simply a memory card. But of course, you can try to read data from the card. And if you're lucky, you find some interesting data. And if you're not lucky, you find nothing. And it's not very easy to go on from that point. So if you don't have access to an actual terminal, to a real terminal, especially designed for this card, it's hard to do anything or to go any further from here on. But what happened is we just typed into Google BCBO, which is the start command for reading data from a smart card like this. And suddenly hit a French web page, which is called www.parodie.com monétique. And at the first sight, you might think, well, we're not interested in jokes about money, parodie, monétique. So what's going on there? But if you go to this website, and well, it doesn't make much sense to do it now, you find out that the French banking card, that one was listed in the ATR list in the beginning, this one, that this card was hacked by a French engineer called Serge Humpich, who did a 4-year research on this card to re-engineer it completely. So he was able to not only understand how the card worked, but he was also able to clone existing cards or to create new cards and use them. And this page exactly explains what you have to do to reproduce every step with the French banking card. It's very, very interesting to read. I can only recommend that you have a look on this page. For him, it was not that funny. He proved that his cloned card worked in front of journalists by redrawing a ticket from a machine with a clone of his own card. But nonetheless, he was accused in France. He was sent to jail. He had to go to court, and he was sentenced to a 2-year probation. I think especially the CCC knows that the French have a very, very special relation to computer security, and if you do something about that, so for him it was not fun, but it was very interesting to see if these things that worked for the French banking card can be transferred one-to-one to the Swiss banking card. Well, we have nothing to lose, so just give it a try. And then we did that. So on the right side, you can see the carte bleue. This is the French banking card with its very similar ATR, answer to reset. It actually responds to the same class code. This is the start of the instruction, so to say. And if you follow the instruction, you can actually see that all the addressing itself on the card, where to find special data, is exactly the same. So you have to convert it, and it's exactly done the same way on the Swiss banking card than on the French banking card. And you end up with a hexadecimal address where the actual card data is stored. So this is, let me first explain, the card is divided into two parts in the end. It's more or less a memory card. It has no crypto functionality on it. It's a very plain card in the end. It was designed in 1983 and wasn't changed since then. And that's at least now 23 years ago, so quite a long time for technology. So the card memory is divided into two parts. It's a read-only memory part, and it's a write-read memory part. And the read-only memory part is that what we are interested in the first place, as we will see. So we start reading the memory content with this command. So such a pity you can't read that stuff now. But you can see it's identical to the French card, and I have already formatted it in a certain way. So sorry. So what we found by simply applying the steps described on the French website to the Swiss postcard was that it worked one-to-one. Nothing had to be changed. It simply worked exactly the same way. The data structures are the same, addresses are the same. Of course, memory content is different. That's true, yeah. Okay. So why are we interested in this very special read-only memory? You know, 1983, when the card was actually designed, having all terminals online was simply wishful thinking. It simply wasn't possible, technically not possible, or much too expensive to do that. So you need a method for the card to authenticate itself offline. So the card must be authenticated itself. And this is done with these read-only memory. Memory is divided, the read-only memory is divided itself into two parts, a cipher part and a plaintext part. And the whole system uses a very simplified form of digital signature. So you have a plaintext data, you encrypt the plaintext data with an RSA private key, and put the result, so this is what I call the ciphertext, onto the card as well. And now every terminal simply has to have the public RSA key hardwired into it, and then it can read both memory parts, decipher or decrypt the cipher part, and compare the result with the plaintext already stored on the card. And if these two parts match, the card itself is authenticated. The system, well, it's not really good, but of course everyone immediately knows it all depends on key size. And we will see that this is the problem, here. Now the people using this card will say, well, this can't be. I have to enter a PIN. What about the PIN? The PIN is a complete fake in the end. Now, not a complete fake. But you don't need it for card authentication. You need it to access the writable memory part of the card. So this is where you remember where the transactions are locked. So the whole process looks like this. The card is inserted into the terminal. The terminal reads the read-only memory part, authenticates the card, and then tries to lock the transaction into the writable part of the memory, which is PIN protected. So the terminal asks you for the PIN. You enter the PIN. The transaction gets written to the memory. And if that is not possible, the transaction is simply aborted. So it's not a PIN check, but it's a simple transaction checking, a write check on the log file. And now it's clear why a full card is rendered unusable. because the transaction couldn't be written to the file. The terminal thinks you have entered probably the wrong PIN, or at least the memory is full. And if the transaction can't get locked, the transaction is aborted. So everything makes sense. But this, of course, makes it very, very simple to clone cards, because if the PIN is not actually needed to authenticate the card, or the card holder, which is the normal case, then it's very easy to clone a card. Even if we have no idea how the ciphertext gets generated or how the plain text is formatted or whatever, we can simply read out the read-only memory. Remember, it's not PIN protected. We can simply read it out, put it onto a clone card that behaves like a postcard by sending out the same memory content, and then have a command handler that allows writing to the writable memory with any PIN. The French did exactly that, and they called this card a yes card, because it says, yes, the PIN is fine, regardless of what you type. But of course, that's just half of the fun. You need a real card. You need someone to put in his card into your reader so that you can retrieve the data from the card. And if you're a hacker, no one is willing to put his card into your reader, you know. So this, of course, would be much more fun if we can create cards ourselves. So if we can simply break the authentication scheme of the card by having some plain text, which is the card number, the issuing date, the end date of the card, and some other stuff, and to produce the ciphertext ourselves. So what do we have to do? We have to reproduce the encipherment of the plain text, which involves getting access to the RSA private key of the card issuer. And honestly, normally you're simply stuck at that point. So if the card is protected with, let's say, a 2048-bit key, or even a 1024-bit key, you need a lot of computing power to get that to get that key factorized, or this modulus factorized. The largest RSA key I know of, or modulus I know of, that gets factorized is the 768, something like that. In a network of thousands of computers over a month. So if it's 1024-bit, you're simply stuck. You have to say, well, no way to do that. But if you analyze the card data, and I'm not going to do it here, it takes simply too much time. You can analyze the memory content. You can extract the modulus from the card. And then you can factorize the modulus, because the modulus is just 320 bits. And everyone who is into RSA encryption, we are currently discussing security of RSA 1024 bits, and discussing the security of RSA 320 bits. It's ridiculous. It took me 24 hours on a normal PC to factorize the modulus and to compute the private key of the card issuer. So that's nothing. That's not security at all. Maybe it was sufficient in 1983 when the system was designed, but it's certainly not sufficient nowadays, not with the computing power available today. So what to do with that? Cloning the card, of course, not only involves the chip content, the memory content of the chip. You also have to take care of the MAC stripe on the back of the card, depending on what you want to do with it. Most of the ATMs, especially if they're not postomats, which means specially designed for the postcard, of course only work with the MAC stripe. But there are a lot of terminals that simply work without the MAC stripe, with just the chip. So you can put in the card in nearly every Swiss telephone, public telephone, and it's not reading the magnetic stripe, it's just reading the chip content. So it's actually possible to create new valid cards, valid in terms of it authenticates itself the same way as a normal postcard will do. And a terminal cannot tell the difference. The card exactly looks the same, you know. Okay, when we discovered that, we thought we should apply the normal procedure of handling such stuff, and the Chaos Computer Club simply has developed a very good working method over the years in many cases that worked fine. The first rule is don't talk to the press, talk to the company involved. And in this case, it was a little bit more complicated. I'm living in Switzerland, but I'm still German. And Andi Müller-Magun, who was involved in that, and Gerrit Helwig. We were all free aliens, and not just to the company culture. This is something that we are used to, but also from the nationality. So they simply didn't want to talk with us in the first place. So we had to get in contact with them through another company. But in the end, we get a meeting with high-ranking officials of PostFinance in Bern. And we talked to them and we explained something to them they should have known for years. Because you remember, the French had the same problem in 1989. So 4 years before we discovered that the postcard is working exactly the same way. And they said, well, thank you very much for giving us the security hints, and of course we will improve security and stuff like that. But remember, it's not only all about techniques. So it's not enough just to tell them what is wrong, but to go deeper. And that was the point when they simply quitted the talk with us. You know, if you have this card and you claim a misuse, that someone has misused your card to withdraw money or to buy things or whatever, you have signed terms of use. And the argument of the issuing bank, or in this case the PostFinance, is always the same. Our system is safe, so if there is a card misuse, you must have, intentionally or not, passed the card and the PIN to someone else, because otherwise it's not possible. And you need a very good lawyer and a lot of, you need simply a good lawyer to get at least 40 or 60% of the loss back from the PostFinance, because you can't prove you didn't pass on the PIN or you didn't pass the card. You simply can't prove it, you know. And then we told them that their legal argument in this case simply breaks down, you know. If it's possible to use the card and the card owner has done nothing wrong, because someone simply cloned his card by knowing the card number and the issuing and the end date. That's all the information you need to clone a card. Then he has not handled against the terms of use, but the system is simply insecure. So they have to rethink their refunding policy in case of card misuse. And of course, they didn't want to hear that. That's for sure. So in the end, they throw us out. And sorry. So we said, okay, this can't be it. We can't simply stop here. So the normal step would be to talk to the next higher level. And at that point, we thought that PostFinance is a real bank. So and then in Switzerland, you go to the so-called Eidgenössische Bankenkommission, which is the supervisor for banks in Switzerland. But they said, yeah, very interesting story, but we are simply not responsible. The PostFinance is not a bank. They are just a company allowed to deal with money. Yeah, it's a very subtle difference. So we said, but someone must be responsible for them. He said, yeah, of course they are. They are still, of course they are privatized, so they are not completely state-owned, but they are still state-controlled. So there is a ministry, so to speak, in Switzerland which is responsible for the Postfinance. And the head of the department, the responsible for the Postfinance, just happens to be the president of Switzerland. He's called Moritz Leuenberger. So we wrote him a letter saying, well, we had a talk with the Postfinance and we think they have a severe problem. And we have the impression that our problem report was not well received. And of course he said, well, I will take care of that. I will advise them to take the necessary steps and to do what has to be done to improve security. Okay. Well, you can't control it if that really happens. You simply have to believe it. And for whatever reasons, the postcard, and that all happened in the year 2002, it drifted a bit out of focus. So we were busy with doing other things, and it was interesting, but simply probably not interesting enough. So that 4 years later, and now we are back, now we are in 2006, I was working on another smart card project and thought, well, maybe it's a good time after 4 years to see what was changed. So the French in 1989, 1999, sorry, yeah. They changed not the system, but they changed the key length to 768-bit, which is at that time the least they can do. So to be not to punish them too much, but at least they changed the key lengths so that not everyone with the laptop can factorize the modulus in a day. But they didn't change the overall design. So the card itself, of course, is possible to handle longer keys because it's not doing any encryption on the card itself. It's just storing plain and cipher texts. So I thought, maybe it's a good idea to have a look, because at the time we talked to them in 2002. They said, well, you know, we are just about changing the postcard system anyway. We want to switch to EMV cards, and we are just in the last field tests, and if these field tests are successful, we will switch immediately. So they simply stated there just before a rollout of EMV-based cards, which would be the standard by now. And so I thought maybe they have switched to EMV cards, which would be the best way to do or to handle the problem. Maybe they have changed the key length. This is what the French did. Or maybe at least they changed the compromised issuer key. We said them, we have the key. Maybe they didn't believe us. No? Okay, so I asked some friends for their card data. I said it's not very easy to convince people to put their card into your reader. But in the end, I ended up with enough data to try to find out what has changed. And I was prepared to factor at least another modulus. Guess what happened, yeah? They haven't changed the key. It is still the old compromised 320-bit key. I was really surprised because doing really nothing wasn't understandable. You know, the revenue of the card is about 8 billion Swiss francs. Of course, that's not the earning of the Postfinance. This is the money total transaction volume of the card. But of course, just take a little percentage of that as the revenue for the bank itself or for the Postfinance itself. You know that a lot of money is earned with the system. So you can surely invest some money to at least change the key or at least lengthen the key, yeah, or switch to another system altogether. They did nothing. They simply left it the way it is. So I phoned them again. They didn't remember me, funnily enough, and said, "Sorry, yes, we got a request from you about the security of our postcard. Sorry, we can't tell you how it works. We are so sorry, but it's secure, of course." And that's it. And so we wrote again to Mr. Leuenberger and said, "Well, we wrote you 4 years ago and just found out they haven't changed the compromised issuer key. So what's going on there?" And after 4 years, for the very, very first time, the Postfinanz responded themselves. They must have read the Fahrplan. So they wrote a nice letter. It's very interesting because I've never read such a letter with so many self-contradicting statements in 1.5 pages. Never before. So it's all German, so I have to translate it on the fly. It says, in the first place, you showed us in 2002 the security problems we have, and we closed them. More or less the next sentence is, but in the end, the key doesn't matter anyway. It's not, the security of the card is not related to the key in any way. So why then fix anything? So it goes on and on. So anyone interested can read it before I tear it apart and throw it where it belongs. Maybe we should scan it and put it onto the web so everyone can read every communication, even with Leuenberger. Okay, fine. Okay. So for those interested technically, the Chaos-Treff Zürich has set up a workshop. It takes place on the third day. You see, from 8:30 to 9:30. And everyone is invited to join this workshop where we will actually analyze the card data. Anyone can bring his own postcard. That would be nice. We will extract the modulus. I will show you how to extract the modulus if you have the data of 2 cards. You don't need the terminal. Normally you need the terminal. But there's a mathematical method to extract the modulus. And then we can probably factorize. You know, it took 24 CPU hours to factorize the modulus. Maybe we can set up a new speed record. So bring your PC with you. We will set up a QCIV, a distributed factorizer. A simple piece of software you can download onto your computer and take part in factorizing it. So maybe we can get it in an hour or maybe in half an hour, depends on how many people join this event. I think that would be fun. And anything else you want to know about the postcard and if it still works, and what about the PIN and PIN changes that are possible, and what you can do. Just for legal reasons, I can't tell you what we exactly did, but I can tell you what you should look at. And so anybody interested, again, you're invited to join the workshop. Yeah, so in the end, of course, it's always the question how to handle something like that beyond the fun we had. Should we inform the press? And, you know, the Postfinanz didn't change a thing, and I don't believe they are simply stuck their head into the sand. So there must be something behind it. And we always thought that a bank or a financial institute, at least, simply can't or will never put its reputation on risk. But look in the newspapers today. There's not a single day where you do not read something about phishing, something about insecure online transaction or stuff like that. So they certainly knew if we go to the press and if press is here and interested in it, no problem. but it will be a story, it will last for some days, and then it's gone. I'm quite sure that the Postfinanz actually thinks that the press coverage will not change anything. And maybe it simply needs other methods to show them what's going on. And I will close with one sentence. It's German, but I hope most of you will understand it. We said, jedem Penner eine Karte für einen Denner. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bernd. I wish I could call this story incredible. Unfortunately, it isn't. Now, are there any questions or comments or experiences of your own? Could somebody with a microphone go there? Well, then just shout. I'll repeat the question. Well, the question was whether the usage pattern had changed significantly since the first. Yeah, the terms of use.
No, of course not. No, we just recently had a case of a person living in Germany but working in, or he had worked in Switzerland. He lost 20,000 Swiss francs. He had his card. He was injured and he was in hospital. He had his card. He did some transaction on the public ATM there, but then put his card into a locker in the hospital. And while he was in hospital, within 3 weeks, 20,000 Swiss francs just go away, you know. So someone exactly drew the maximum amount possible every day from his account. So he said, "I have a card misuse because my card was definitely in the locker. I gave it to no one." He simply couldn't prove his case. The lawyer I talked to simply didn't understand the technical issue behind it, and he got 10% refund. So they didn't change. No, why should they change? It doesn't cost their money, you know. It costs the customers' money. So.
Well, further questions, comments?
Oh yes, one question, because so many people had the postcard, and one of the statements of the Postfinanz is that they are issuing EMV cards already. I've never seen one. So if you have a postcard that you received not long ago, maybe we can check if their statement is true. I have never seen a postcard with EMV capabilities. You can tell by the ATR that these cards are not EMV capable. They would be simply rejected by a terminal. Right. Sure. It's just to prove if it's all wrong what they write, or if they at least did the rollout in the end. I didn't believe them either, so I do not trust them. But at least we could check if it's true or not.
Okay, one last question, maybe you.
There were funny things going on. We talked to the press after talking to Mr. Leuenberger. Funny things happened. One of the newspapers we were talking with, the journalist came to us and said, well, he presented it to his chief, and the chief said, well, we can't publish the story because we need the advertising of the Postfinanz. We were in contact with Kassensturz. Everyone in Switzerland, of course, knows this this TV show. No, it's not a TV show. It's something like Wieso in Germany. So it's about consumer protection. He got a phone call from his boss saying, well, do you think it's still worth to further investigate, or should we do something else? So we were not very lucky, which probably one of the reasons was that we are simply aliens. You have to understand the Swiss. If the Germans are coming and telling them they are doing everything wrong, probably not the good thing to do. So. There were some talks from Andy with the Spiegel, which was not too much interested because it's a Swiss and it doesn't touch the Germans, so it's only related to Switzerland. So they were not too interested as well. Maybe we should revive all this, and hopefully the Swiss do it. And I, for my part, give any information we have or I have, so to support them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're supposed to take a break of 15 minutes, so whoever wants to ask any more questions to Bernd is invited to join him here in front.
Sorry, nothing illegal, just 2 big prime numbers.
So take your photos. And after the break, you'll be able to hear a talk by Starbuck about hacking fingerprint recognition systems. So see you then.